Stop name calling one another. Stop gossiping about one another. Stop squabbling about one another. Stop snitching on one another, informing on one another for personal gain. Stop cursing one another. Stop being discourteous to one another. Stop being disrespectful to one another. Stop stealing from one another. Stop robbing one another. Stop fighting one another. Stop killing one another. Stop throwing down trash where black people live, work, and play. Stop making dirt and filth the norm. Stop using and selling drugs to one another. Stop black children from thinking that as children they can be adequate mothers and fathers. Stop believing that welfare will save you. Start believing in prosperity. Stop pretending that racism, white supremacy does not exist. Stop being divided and conquered. Stop allowing black, brown, red, and yellow people being divided by white supremacists. Wow. That was Dr. Wilcrest. I got that from her. But look, we're going to bring online today. We're going to bring my brother on today from my hometown of Camden, New Jersey, coming to you live all the way from here. Where's here? Right here. Come on in, brother Troy. Brother Troy, how you doing?
I'm good, Brother Ray. How are you, sir?
I am as the old hunky-dory peachy cream. But look, there's a few things I got to get out of the way. You're from Camden, New Jersey, right?
Born and raised.
What school you went to? What high school you went
to? I went to Woodrow Wilson High School.
Oh, you went to the only true high school that's in Camden. I've been having a bunch of speakers from that other high school that really ain't a high school. I just need to get that out the way. Everybody that sees Ray's Corner Live that's from Camden, I'm going to dig into you. I'm not going to talk about that spanking on Thanksgiving Day. Listen, let's go. Brother Troy, tell them a little bit about yourself, where you come from, how do you get what you do, how do you get here before we get into your topics.
Well, it's real simple. From Camden, New Jersey, born and raised, from that era and that breed that wherever you lived, whether you were in college, where you're playing college football, wherever we've been, always said I was from Camden, New Jersey. Didn't say I was from the Philadelphia area. Didn't say I was from South Jersey. Always stipulated that I was from Camden, New Jersey. That comes with a positive and a negative. But the bottom line is we grew up in an era that prepared us for real life issues. It made us conscientious. And for the most part, the friends that are my ride or dies, we have all been successful. We have all contributed to our community. And that's what it's really about. As far as my resume, I'm all over the place. But in terms of what the people that are watching this needs to know is that I became successful from working real hard. We at one time owned donkeys. I owned donkeys for about 12 years. I had to take outside of donkeys and bought the Panzerotti vans and trucks that used to go to the high schools. I've been invested in Camden since 1988. I've always been socially conscious, so I've always served. I've been a member of the NAACP since I was 5 years old. My godparents started the branch in Camden. I was a member, and I served as the vice president under Calandis Francis. I was an investigator for the NAACP prior to that. I've also went into law enforcement after my youngest brother was shot and killed in Camden. I've invested thousands of dollars in the city of Camden. I've been advocating for the rebirth and the better quality of life for the residents. And not only that, I've been doing it nationwide too. I was a member of the MAC committee, the Minority Action Committee, where we worked with bringing minority teachers into all types of environments of suburban schools, public schools in inner cities. In addition to that, civil rights agencies and communities so we can uplift the communities. I've been private security for Donovan McNabb and his family for over 10 years. I've been a marketing rep for movie stars and other NFL players as an NFLPA marketing rep. And I represent the Delphonics and other music groups and in the community, as well as something for my family. Still there, Ray?
Yep. So it seemed like you have a long resume. It seemed like you might know something.
We try. The biggest thing is that there's been some time wasted. You know, I remember looking back on myself before I became debt free. Um, you know, I sat back and kept saying somebody else is going to do the work. I kept waiting for somebody else to step up and to do some of the, you know, the hard work that it takes to try and win some battles in Camden City specifically. You know, and for a long time I just sat back and let some people take the lead. And it wasn't until, you know, some real recent issues in the last 8 or 9 years that I decided for the last 10 years, I've been very consistent with going to city council meetings. I've been very consistent with reading all of the different legislations and their improprieties so that I can be well informed and then try and inform the community at large.
So um, let's just share. You know, Camden is no different than any other city. They got things going on in Camden that's every other city. But right now, let's talk about there's some recent things that happened in Camden. There's a lot of confusion about this resolution number 69 for our viewers because they're not all from Camden. Just give a little backdrop of what the resolution is for, and it could happen in their community, and then apply to what is going on in Camden, New Jersey.
Okay. That's a loaded question, but let's start from understanding that Camden is doing something um, under the guise of some people who are in political power that have their own agenda. And by doing, you know, there is a lot of people who have sold the rest of the community out. No one person alone can do the damage that's being done in the city of Camden without the help of some people who are in position to prevent such acts. So my position on any resolution, any ordinance, or anything that comes through Camden City is to make sure that the people who are doing such are going to be held accountable at some point. So I've made that very clear. I've been filing FBI charges, prosecutor charges, all kind of different charges for many different. Now, as it comes to Camden and Resolution 69, it's very simple. If you follow along, it's very, very simple. The city inappropriately introduced a resolution on a prior ordinance. That is conflict. But they've done it. They've done similar things. They do a lot of things without people understanding what's going on. But the resolution itself is under what they have like a shared service agreement. People got to understand this shared service process. Shared services means that they're going to take away something on a line item or budget from the city and then use it as rationale to then have a private agency, an individual, to me, it's a pay-to-play scheme to try and have another person who you want to be in charge of a service that typically the city would do. But because the city has a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, with the state, because of its fiscal deficit, it's a very, problematic problem. It's a situation where if you do a shared service agreement, you have to be very particular into the language. Well, in this particular Resolution 69, they already had something in place for the last 3 years. It cost the state.
Now, let me just stop you real quick and just hold that thought because even though I know, is this something that some of my other listeners should be prepared for? Is this something that might be happening in other small cities like yourself, like Camden, that's predominantly Black?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is, one of the things, what we talk about in Camden City, understand that this is affecting in other cities as well that are in other urban areas because we're vulnerable because of these pay-to-play participants. You have politicians who are elected, but when they're elected, they're getting, they're going underneath of the, person's influence, whether it's for financial gain, whether it's for personal gain, but for all sake, it's not doing what their job description mandates. So yes, people, other cities should be concerned. Now back to the resolution, a very key thing I want to make about this resolution. The resolution has not proven that it's going to benefit the city of Camden based under the memorandum of understanding with the DCA. That's the Department of Community Affairs. Department of Community Affairs in the state of New Jersey has a fiscal monitor. His name is John Salvatore, who comes to most of the city council meetings. His job there is to follow and make sure that the city is implementing very beneficial financial strategies, because without costing the state more money, without going over budget. So when they project their budget, it's very important that they stay within those line items. Resolution 69 sent a letter to the mayor prior to the meeting that we just had in city council, where an enormous amount of Camden residents showed up, and we were so very grateful for that. And they got to see and hear firsthand how significant standing together is, and we have to continue to do that. But Resolution 69, by the state standard, and I got a copy of the letter.
Got to jump in real quick. That thought. So Kim, so hold that thought. But I want you to expand real quick and get back into that thought. How important is for the residents to be involved with city council meetings? See, we're not understanding that, you have, in order to run your city and dictate things as a community, you have the ability to create policy. I know what policy do. So just real quick, tell them the importance of that and then get back on your thought.
Yeah, well, real quick, that ties in, because if you're not a part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And what people that are in this pay-to-play scheme, how they're doing things, is very organized. In other words, they count on the fact that people aren't going to be concerned for their own well-being. There's a lot of people shoulder to shoulder with me. And recently, I've had discussion with a person that was shoulder to shoulder with me, and we shouldn't have done it on Facebook. But the reality is, at some point, you got to understand the gravity of making sure that we stay together. When they see dissension, they get motivated. I don't like to speak in odds with anybody in public. If you know what you're talking about, then you and I can sit in any room and have a discussion, because I'm going to tell you that I'm going to do my homework. I'm going to read exactly what's going on. I'm going to apply the law that goes with it. And then for that purpose alone, that's why I'm going to be willing to stand in public and make a public statement, because I can back it up with verified information. That's my style. That's my strategy. That's how I do things. If you're not informed and you don't have the facts, then you're factless. And if you're factless, you're useless. And the bottom line is, we can motivate and drum major a lot of people together. But the thing you got to do is stay in one lane. It's very important to have a lane that you know and can identify with. So yes, other cities should be very concerned with these type of things happening. But as for Resolution 69, this shared service agreement, according to the DCA, has made it very, very clear that they did not budget properly for this. They can't see the benefit to having this shared service agreement, and they recommended that they not be implemented, and that they come back to the table as collectively with the city and come up with a better solution. That means the resolution is dead. Now, we have the type of officials right now that are they're rogue. We have rogue officials. They're doing whatever they want to do. If they want to, they're in control of the police department. They're in control of the city inspectors. We know that because the city inspectors actually testified in that public meeting of the city council meeting, and they said that they were already moved. They were already moved. This is the process that's really been plaguing the city of Camden. The administration is doing things without even going through the proper vetting process of allowing the elected officials to have a say and talk to the community to see if it's beneficial and what the community wants. They had already implemented it. They've done this before. They've done it when they took up the meters off of Cooper Street. I found the Michaels Group, who's doing the properties over in Branch Village. They didn't even have permits. I mean, this is the type of circumvention that most inner cities are experiencing because we don't have anybody on guard. And I'm talking about the elected officials whose job it is to watch the back and the front for all of our citizens. So that's the resolution. Resolution 69 is dead, but the bottom line is we have some rogue and arrogant elected officials that are allowing people, allowing the process to just go ahead and work and letting people see. I think someone even called in and said that a city inspector came to their house sometime last week, and an officer was there with them. And my advice to them is this: if you get an inspector that comes to your home, and Ray, I really need you to catch this, and for the viewers to catch this. If you get a city inspector that comes to your home, understand the city inspector is probably there for a reason, probably a legitimate reason. Let's say your fence is broken, your grass is not cut, and you know it's supposed to be outside inspections only. But let's just say they try and come in your home as well, because if you got a crack in your wall that could be dangerous to leak inside the home, so it could be some things there structurally that they might need to go inside for. So let's just take the worst case scenario. You get an inspector, comes to your home, and is going to cite you for something that needs to be remedied. And an officer is sitting out front. This is what I would do. I would not let that officer in my property, number one. Number two, I would get that officer's vehicle number and the officer's name. I would call the Office of Department of Community Affairs, and I would say there's an officer outside who is paying his salary. Because according to the Resolution 69 and the letter received from DCA, they said this is not something that's going to be financially beneficial to the city, and I'm sure it's not a budget item that they're willing to pay for. So we would love to know who's going to pay that salary of that person sitting out there. Now, in terms of compliant, you should be very compliant to the inspector. If you want to get a ticket, if you get a ticket for what's wrong, when you go to court, ask for a change of venue. Ask to have a judge hear your case outside of Camden County, and then watch you get justice. Watch that you'll be treated fairly, because the reality is we do have a rogue government, and they're going to do whatever they can to intimidate you. And I wouldn't stand to be intimidated.
So would you say that would be tied in with gentrification? I know that's one of the things you want to talk about. That's something that is tactic they're going to do with gentrification, and then just expand on what's going on with gentrification as you understand it.
Yeah, right now, and I'm on a national campaign to talk about gentrification. I was honored a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, close to 2 years ago. I spoke at Harvard School of Business, and it was a blessing, and what we're seeing is that there's a paradigm that's taking place across the country in inner cities. And I want to explain something. People get the words confused. Gentrification and regentrification are almost synonymous. What you have to understand is gentrification happens before regentrification. And what gentrification actually does, and I challenge anybody to look it up, and you'll see it and read it for yourself. Gentrification simply states it's where in an urban area, middle-class people come in and they remove the urban residents so that they can bring in their quality of life into the urban area, rebuild it so that it's suitable for middle-class people to come and replace the underprivileged, the underserved, and the disadvantaged people that were living there before they came in with gentrification. Regentrification is just a process in which once the city is revitalized and at a higher price, residents that were there can't afford to come back in. And it'll be made suitable for middle-class people that find that in their quality of life and their standard. So cities all across, this has been happening for years, but it's a lot of contributing factors. We have redlining still with insurance companies. We have police profiling, which stipulates certain types of crimes. Then you have the lack of taxes being paid on by homeowners because it's hard to afford them. They raise them first, and then they stop a lot of quality services. You know, for all the times that Camden didn't go out and inspect people's homes and say, cut your grass, now that it's at a great magnitude, now it's an urgent issue? No, it's an issue because people haven't had that kind of money in years. So now if you come in and demand that kind of payment to fix up your homes, people aren't able to afford it. And so what happens is now they supplement that with some type of eminent domain policy, and they supplement that with other type of strategies that allow them to say, hey, listen, you have this many days and this much, and you have these many fines. We're going to put a lien on your home. And once you have a lien in the state of New Jersey specifically, taxes take the first place. So you can, and you possibly will lose your home.
And you guys, I need you guys to share this right now. Share this. This is some good stuff that's going on, some powerful, some good information. Also, if you have any questions, just go on and put in the comments some questions that you had, and Brother Troy will answer any questions that you have. So is there anything else you want to talk about gentrification I think the audience need to know?
Yeah, with gentrification, the way to combat this gentrification is very simple. In fact, the money, this is the this is the hypocrisy that surrounds gentrification. The money in which the select few are getting to redevelop these inner cities is earmarked with special incentives. I'll give you one example. HUD. HUD has a program called the Choice Neighborhood Grant, and they have what they call Section 3. If in some of the criteria under that lending source, the city or the individual companies that are selected, and it's a process done through the state, which we just found out that the EDA that monitors this and implements some of this for these companies to get these large grants and tax credits, they didn't do the proper vetting. If you have collusion amongst the state and the county and then the city officials, you're almost doomed. So you need guys like me. You need other people like Miss Walker and some other people up in the state of New Jersey that I stay constantly in contact with. They're affirmative action officers. And the long and short, it's their job to go in and say, listen, if you receive this money from HUD, it's HUD money specifies that you have to hire the residents closest to the project. So if you, and an example is the Branch Village project that I mentioned earlier, the Michaels Group. The Michaels Group was supposed to hire the same people that were living in Branch Village first. Now, if you can't obtain those people to take the job to do low-skilled labor jobs, but they get prevailing wage pay, that's how you can keep people who live in the city to afford it when the city is rejuvenated, when the city is rebuilt. The only way you can do it is if you give them a fair wage. Well, there's no better way to do it than to hire the people to do the work, and then they receive that higher pay. It's called prevailing wages. They'll get paid like $39 an hour. Some places $57 an hour. It's all according to the job description that you have. And these funds from HUD specifies that as an incentive. And then there's supposed to be somebody from the city that monitors those incentives. They're supposed to get a monthly report, and so that they can say, this is how many Latinos, African Americans, white, any gender or any different race they're supposed to have in a chart that says this is how many people we hired, this is how long they're still staying with us, and this is what they got promoted to. And the city doesn't even do it. They weren't doing it. They didn't even have an affirmative action officer to do it. So that was one of the things I fought for, along with other people in the city. We were very successful in getting everybody to acknowledge that that's part of the problem. They've been getting away with it because nobody is watching the house. And that's very important. You have to watch the house. and to see what's going in. So gentrification is tied into tax credits. Now in Camden specifically, everybody knows now that one particular group of friends and associates received $1.1 billion out of $1.6 billion of tax credits coming into that small 9 square mile city. Listen, that's a red flag in itself. And nobody should be shocked, because there's been a group of us for the last almost 15, 20 years that's been complaining about these tax credits, that's been complaining about what it's going to cost us in the long run. And they've been still doing it. So it's nothing new. It's just now it's at the point that if we don't fight and stand right now, there's no recourse for us. Because here's the old adage: when the money's gone, there's nothing to regain. There's nothing to recoup. The jobs are already being taken. If you go in the city and see where all the development is taking place, you just got to stand there. The HUD system says there should be 25% minority participation to 40% minority participation. So if you stand there and count how many African Americans, how many Latinos, how many females, how many Asians, and if you don't count 25 to 40% of the total workers working, then that company's in violation. It's that simple. Now, anybody could do it, but we don't even have anybody designated to do it. And then when you bring it up to the city, they're in denial. And then they act like that's not how we do things. No, you don't have a choice. If you accept the money from HUD, HUD requires that gets done. But see, what I've learned is when you call HUD and you call them and you ask them to stop the money, you almost have to call Washington, D.C., which I did. I called the AOG's office in Washington, D.C. and filed a complaint. And it took a long time for them to get back to me. And then finally something was done, but it wasn't enough. Most of the money was gone. The low-skilled jobs was taken. They didn't even have a permit while they were working on the work. So those are the consistent things. And Ray, like you said, that you can see in other areas too. It's not just Camden. It's in inner cities across the country. In Atlanta, it's the same thing in Atlanta. But Atlanta is taking a proactive stance because the former great mayor, the late Mayor Maynard Jackson, he put in place that no contract, regardless of who the funding source is, if it comes into the city of Atlanta, then 30% of that contract is going to go to minorities. And let me tell you something, they stick to that policy. So a lot of other cities need to get the same type of policy, like Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Indiana, Chicago, Detroit. I've worked with areas of Detroit. All those cities I just said, I've talked and had discussions with some people on the ground in those cities, and they all need to adopt that type of policy. 30% or the contract doesn't get done.
And I want y'all to excuse me. I'm a little bit, I think my sinus is acting up, but I did not want to cancel this, so you'll see me coming on a little late. But listen, this is Ray's Corner Live, so we try to hit it right to the belt. Now, I'm going to just play the devil's advocate, right? And, you know, us black folks, right, we always say stuff, you know, there's this machine, there's this organization that's running our cities, right? But we you know, we black folks, and I'm just going to be honest, right? We're fighting against one organization or one machine. And you said something earlier that was so powerful, and I'll just use Camden as an example. When I looked to find the people that you're fighting against, I didn't find nowhere on Facebook, Instagram, or any other social media where they're bickering out in public. I just didn't see it. So in areas, I've been in New Orleans and other areas, and it's all the same. Our leaders in our community fight against each other. Our people see them fighting against each other, and they are tired of the bickering and fighting within ourselves. So they can't trust the people we're going up against, and they can't trust the people that's supposed to be fighting for us. Thinking about this, Camden as an example, 75,000 people, and you could win mayor with less than 10,000 votes. So at what time do we take responsibility for the condition that we're in? Everybody knows the problem. Nobody's working on the solution, and nobody wants to humble themselves in our communities to understand that we have to have economical power, right, to change the policies, procedures in our city, to change the curriculum in our education system, but how do we get past the place where we keep fighting? George Fraser said this. He had a Jewish friend. He said the difference between a Jew and a black folks is this: the Jews argue after they get the money, and black folks argue before. So
That's right.
what is the solution? Not just in Camden, but it's other places. But me and you just happen to be from Camden, and I just happen to see that people are tired of fighting each other when you got these other people, that's doing everything, banking on us fighting each other, so we never change.
Well, you're hitting the primary reason as to why we're in the condition that we're in. Most of the other groups of people, they stick together, and everybody wants to be the leader. With me, I don't want to be anybody's leader. What I want to do is just know the facts. I want to do, we grew up in the area of Dragnet, just the facts, man. I just want to know the facts. So what I do is I read everything. I equip myself with the facts, and then I stay in my lane. And I learned that from a very good family and a good woman, Mrs. McNabb. Mrs. McNabb, when they put me on their team, they recognized that I had a gift in other areas, but specifically for the McNabb family, I was simply the security guy. I was head of security. No one was in my lane, so I had no traffic. And when it came to marketing, they had somebody else in marketing, even though I'm good at marketing. That's what my degree is in. That's what I'm great at. I'm a great strategist. But the reality is I wasn't that on that team. So even in this movement, people have to recognize their lane, stay in their lane, and then we'll be okay. I don't like to debate in public, over with people that are in the same fight that I'm in. But we just got to be careful of what information goes out. If nobody says anything and just the information that goes out that's wrong, that's going to hurt the movement more than somebody standing up and saying something. So just recently, I spoke out because I'm speaking from that I know, because, I not only spoke to the people that generated and drafted the letter, but I also read the letter. I also read the MOU. It's a 26-page document. I've had it for over 4 years. I've also read the ordinance and the resolution. And the long and short, it's a lot of ambiguity inside of those documents. And the one thing that's very clear, though, is that the city administration does not have the power to implement anything without the approval of DCA. And so that's the facts I'm sticking with. If DCA says we recommend you not moving forward and we're going to discuss this later, that's what it's supposed to be. But we're dealing with a mayor that basically said the governor's not welcome in our city. He don't speak for the citizens of Camden. Not saying that. Not when the city is being financed by the state. And this governor that we have is doing tremendous things that are looking as if it's going to be beneficial to all people in the community, but definitely for the minority class. And understand what you were just talking about, us being having dissension. Minorities need to understand the minority group. Out of the minority group, you can put Latinos, Mexican, I don't separate them, just say Latinos, Asian, other, white, Indian, and black. The bottom line is we're the least to get any minority benefits from that. Primarily white female gets more minority benefits than a black female, and also than minority men, black men, period. So it's probably more so because we can't stick together and we don't support our businesses, our black businesses. We don't support each other. And we also don't go out of our way to not knock the person down, but to lift the person up. So those type of things are impeding our process. But if we can get a paradigm in our thought process of working together, seeing everybody do well, and then making sure that we're taking advantage of these benefits. I mean, come on. The Sixers got $80 million in the city of Camden, or $82 million. Hotech got $265. The old Sears building that was taken over by Subaru, they came in with $167 million, and then I think another some $1 million. Cooper Hospital got 40-some million. Rutgers Rowan University and Rutgers and Rowan together got some money, and then turned around and hired our mayor. which is again a violation. And the thing I said, and you were hinting to, the process of this dissension is people like myself and other people that are greater than me in the community and stood for a long time. I won't name any names because I'll leave somebody out, but people in Camden know who the fighters of people for the people are. Those people that's been fighting for all those years, they've not sold us out. So the ones that have sold us out, man, listen, I'm telling you my motto. You can't walk in the door with me. Listen, I don't care if you was a former friend, if you was a former officer with me, you don't care. I don't care what you did. You could play football with me. If you were on that team selling out the community, when you walk in the door, I'm shutting the door. When you walk to that door, I'm shutting the door because you're not good for us. You're not, and we got to come to the point where we got to separate from them. Those are what I call Judases. Another good friend of mine called them that. Those are the ones. I'm gonna stick with the name Judas. I don't want to make any bad names, but the bottom line is you can't have Judases in your camp. You just got to eliminate them. If you want to be successful, eliminate them. They are not helping our cause. I need the people that are strong-willed, vigilant, progressive, that are looking to have an answer to real problems. And if they stick to getting these things done and understanding what we need to get done, we're going to win because it's going to take putting the time in. And you can't have people that's going to be on the fence. You can't.
So all my friends out there that viewing it, if you have some questions, please type some questions in the comments. I'll be looking at it. I'll pick it up as soon as I can get to it. So let me talk a little bit about politics, Camden politics. And for my viewers, you got to realize, don't get the city mixed up because it might not be your city.
Yeah.
Because they play the same game in every city.
It's true.
So talk a little bit about what's going on in Camden with Camden politics.
Well, you said it, Ray. You said it earlier, and this is what people have to do. You got to study your city and understand the things that's going to help you to be better.
Hold on, before you just because one of the things that I understood in New Orleans, when I was down in New Orleans and we was doing this homeless plan for the city, we did 5-year, 10-year, 15-year homeless plan after Katrina. New Orleans had the highest homeless rate in the nation. As of last year, now it has the lowest. And I understand this. When I started re-engaging back in Camden, one of the things that I looked at and I asked people, have you ever looked at the 5-year plan, Camden's 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 12-year plan, what the plan that they have for the city? And I think that's some researches that we have to do. Even though it might change, but but that gives you an idea what they're up to. So go on.
Well, you mentioned that, and I'll answer that, and then I'll go back to what we were just talking about. But on that note, I'm going to give you two good answers with that. Number one, the city of Camden disguises its 5-year and 10-year plans. They're disguised. What they used to do is they used to have what they call a redevelopment plans, and they would prioritize a redevelopment plan by wards and sections. And then that would be like the master plan. Then they would show you these plans, but while you're looking at those plans, they already drafted plans that are opposite of what you're looking at. That's something that they did for many years. They say they had plans, then they didn't adopt them, then it wasn't adopted properly. Just the guys. Now, in this situation, at the time that Katrina went on, I had a very unique situation. I had my own manufacturing plant. My barbecue sauce was in 576 supermarkets. And at the time, when we were doing our barbecue sauce, I had been approached from a company in New Orleans. And that company bottled my sauce for me and convinced me that I could close my plant and I would make out a lot better. And it was true. So we merged with that company, and that company to this day made my barbecue sauce. And what happened is Katrina happened. And when that happened at my church, we were learning when something bad happens to you, that's when you got to stretch yourself a little more and do more giving. So Katrina people, if you remember, were relocated to Philadelphia under the Operation Brotherly. And myself and I convinced some other people to work with them, and I listened to them and talked to them. And at the time, Kwesi Mfume was our national president for the NAACP. And we were sending attorneys, some great attorneys' names. I can't think of the name of some of the attorneys. And I was involved in trying to get some things done in New Orleans. And what we found out is that people's homes was being taken because the actual person on the deed had passed away years ago, but they had been accepting the payments from the surviving family. But because they couldn't prove that they were the person of deed, that's how they were taking those people's properties in that area. So there's a lot of complexities and similarities, even with Camden, New Orleans, and all these type of situations. Because we got people that our grandparents owned the homes that some of the residents of Camden live in now, and if they didn't change the deed, we got to get that stuff straightened out. Then we had people that had this X-Ban and the TLFC come in, and under my appraisal company, we did a lot of the appraisals in there in the city of Camden, and we didn't charge them a lot of money. And the long story short, people didn't have their paperwork proper, and then they didn't follow through with the agreement that they had with the TLFC. And now I asked for a document from the city attorney, and that was I believe it was a 58-page document. And I can tell you that there's some conflicts in that document that the city residents that were under those plans have to pay their taxes, and the city took back the properties, but there's no real explanation, in my opinion, as to how do you take back something and put the same debt on it when you sold it. TLFC paid you off those liens. So there's a process where people can fight. I'm just not astute to how you can check those deeds and check those agreements to get yourself out of that. But I'm still helping some city residents to get their taxes caught up and some things done. And I've been doing a lot of that work for years. So that's the correlation between New Orleans and the city of Camden. Now, as for politics and how they work, this is how it works. We have been letting people get selected to be our leader. They've been
politicking.
Yeah, politicking, exactly. We've been getting bamboozled and politricked right when we do this political party. Now, African Americans traditionally vote Democratic, but you got to understand something. There's a process to be in the whole process. If you don't do it correctly, then those little snafus will get you rejected. So a lot of times we have good people that are trying to run and can't even get properly vetted and properly put in the ballots and so forth. Fighting for a position on the ballot is traditionally important. If you all over the place and not in the right columns, traditionally people go in and vote straight down the column. You got to stop that. People got to stop that. You got to vote for who's the best candidate. You got to know their records. You got to get involved in these debates. You got to come out and know these politicians and know who the person is from your neighborhood. And you got to know what they stand for and who they're aligned with. Because in the city of Camden, they're winning votes. The mayor's seat is winning with less than 6,000 votes.
And I know everybody heard what you're saying, but why aren't the people coming out? I mean, that's my whole thing. Why aren't the people coming out?
Well, I have a theory to that, Brother Ray. I have a theory. Here's the theory to that. A lot of times, our people, when we've been held down so long, you seem to have skeletons. And so what happens is, and it's two ways. What happens is you try not to bring any attention to you because you got a skeleton. At the same time, you know that the people that you're going to come out against, they retaliate against you. That's the intimidation factor. That's what Resolution 69 is about. Resolution 69, is a way in which they're going to try and intimidate you, where they're going to try and take money from you, why they're going to try and put you in a position where you're vulnerable to eminent domain, to violations and citations that add up. After all this years of neglect, why all of a sudden are you coming in to inspect people's homes like that?
But when you say eminent domain, explain to the people, because they hear that a lot of times. I don't think they really understand what it is, why the city use it, and then go back to your thought. Explain what.
Okay. Yeah. Well, eminent domain. This is the eminent domain, and this is real important. what I did, and this is, I hope this helps somebody, but what I typically do is if I find a passion in something I'm doing, then I go and get a license in it. Okay, so it's not like I'm just talking to be talking. Um, I had a license as an appraiser. I went and got my license to be an appraiser in New Jersey, Delaware, Philadelphia, and tips of Maryland. And a long story short, when you go to, when a person has a home and the city, the government, or somebody sees that there's what we call in the appraisal business, a higher and best use for the property or the land, they can approach you because they think it's more beneficial at large for the residents, the county, the city, to tax base, whatever it is. So let's say, for instance, you have a city that has no hospital, and the city thinks that, or they need to redo a hospital, and they say, we see that this little area of space, we can build a really nice medical facility. And now there's a few scattered homes and residents that have property in that area, but the greater part or the greater good for everybody is that we build this new facility. Then they're going to approach the homeowners and the landowners and say, listen, how much do you want for this property? Because we see that this is going to be beneficial for the greater good of the community to put in this facility. Well, the person might say, well, I don't want to sell. This was my grandfather's property. Now it's my family. I'm going to leave it in my family. And then they're going to say, well, you're in the last 10% of the people. We got to get this property. So then the government says, well, they can approach the government and say, hey, this person won't sell. We want to exercise eminent domain because for the greater good of the community and the city, we need to get this property built, this facility built, and we'll give them a fair market value. And that's pretty much what eminent domain is where they can approach you and say that for the better and for the best good of the community, we need your property, and you really don't have much choice unless you want to go to court with us. And their pockets are long and your pockets are not that long. So it becomes a financial war. You just don't have the money to fight them. And the long story short, you got more people against you than for you. And eminent domain sometimes is not fair. Sometimes they exercise it inappropriately and illegally. And that's some of the things that we're watchdog for, especially in the city of Camden. I truly believe that it's selective, it's been tampered with, it's part of collusion, and it's going to be exposed eventually. You can look at it and see. Look at all the properties that was taken and collectively done. That was drafted for years under the guise of, like we talked about earlier, a master redevelopment plan that really wasn't true, because most of those companies started getting formed and incorporated. I traced them all the way down to their EIN numbers. Those companies was being formed by the same individuals. They put offices in Cherry Hill, they put offices in other areas, and then they bought the land, and then they went under one big umbrella. And if you look at it, the same people are involved in the ownership and in partnerships with all of those companies, and they're on their boards.
So go on and finish your thought. I know I took you off your thought about the politics.
For politics, or like Carmen saying, politics, it's just this simple. The mayor's office in the city of Camden, you can almost win with less than 6,000 votes. But if you run for office as mayor, let me just say something. Be the best that you can be, and for all the people. If somebody's pulling your string or asking you to do it and it's not in your heart to do it, don't do it. You're only hurting the right person for the right job. It's going to take, I can tell you this, and I need all of Camdenites to really hear me and hear me clear on this important issue. When this next election comes, if we don't show up and show out, it's going to be a wrap. And I'll tell you why. I've been tracing the money and tracing the money and tracing the money. Once the money's gone, it's over. What are you going to recoup? There's no reparations whatsoever for the citizens, residents of Camden to bounce back from. No jobs, no equity, no anything. No job, no properties, no nothing. The tax base is already at a very, very low. And if it gets much higher, the people that are paying their taxes are going to leave. because they're not going to be able to afford these services. You already see there's a meeting on December 4th for special services district. You know what that means? That means it's going to be additional fees and you're not going to be able to afford them. And it's designed that way because that's part of the gentrification process, and also the regentrification of you not being able to come back in because you're high. This is for people that live that don't have waterfront areas to walk and bike trails to have, but they want that. They don't have brownstones, so they want that. And you know what happens when it comes in? The value goes up. So that's why I said it's a part of redlining. Camden has a waterfront area. You know how many people live in Cherry Hill, Marlton, and other areas that want to be on a waterfront? You know, that's why it's happening. That's why it's gentrification. That's why they come in and redo it. They want it, and it's going to be worth more money.
Let me share this real quick. Sonia Pollard said, giving someone under $90,000 for their property will not allow them to purchase another home in another city in New Jersey. Also, eminent domain does not give market price for the property. Is far less than what's needed.
That's exactly right. If you're not prepared to write and argue and get your own appraisal and get everything done and show the increases and the improvements that you put in your property, you're not going to get a fair market value. That's their goal is not to come in and give you what it's worth. And understand something. You don't sell a house for what it's worth. You sell it for more than it's worth. That's called profit. That's called how you do it. And the person comes in and they don't have to spend much more to fix it up. But if you do sell it at a fair market value, then it's got to be some plus or minus in terms of improvements, because everybody's taste is not exact. You know, in the appraisal business, what we do is some people prefer a garage, some people don't. But the person who really wants a garage, they're willing to pay a little more money for the garage. That's how we assess the higher value, because in the comparison to the property, because the person really wants. It's the buyer's choice. The person wants a garage. So she's absolutely right. You're not going to get fair market value when they're coming in and try and bargain it so that they can, because they're going to spend, that's a loss to them because they got to still build a new development, you know. So they're not going to try and give you the best price. They're not. But that's what the fair market value stipulations are. They got to come in and give you what's fair. Well, what's fair, you got to be ready to argue why it's fair to you, because you're going to have to pay for an appraisal. You're going to have to articulate why and what improvements you've done. And sometimes it's pretty difficult to do.
Well, Sonia wanted me to remind you, you know her by Squeaky.
That's right. I know Sonia. That's right.
So we got about 5 minutes left, right? So give us some closing thoughts of what you think people need to know. What are some of the solutions? Where are we at? How can people get in contact with you? What should be our next plan? You got 7 minutes and 30 seconds.
That's plenty of time. You know, I read like a book. You know, I'm licensed to carry. I'm not fearful for anything. I try and live my life in an honest, above ground way. I'm a giving person. You know, I believe that God blessed me to be debt free as long as I've been. And I believe that every morning when I wake up, like I told a group of pastors, I told them that when I wake up, I'm burdened with trying to do more for City of Camden. It's an everyday thing for me, every day. And I don't want no dissension between anybody that's ever worked with me, anybody that's continuing to do good for Camden. Whatever lane you're in, that's your lane. And I honor it. I don't get in your way. I don't get in the way. But if it comes down to something that is best for everybody and it's a fact, I can get a copy for you. I'll read it to you. I'll read it myself. And if I read it, I'm willing to tell anybody, here's a copy. I keep it on a thumb drive. I can pass it. I can email it. Anybody that knows me, they know they got my cell number. I don't even give out, any other thing, Facebook and none of that stuff. I give my cell number. You have my cell number. You can call me anytime. Anytime. I'm 24/7. I get calls every day from somebody that needs help for one way or another, whether it's a civil rights issue, whether it's a domestic issue that they're dealing with, whether it's something financial, all types of things. And we have a network to help everybody in different ways. If you're a Black business owner and you need capital to try and get money for your business, if you have at least a 600 credit score, we can get you capital. And you got a paycheck coming in, I don't care if it's from McDonald's or any type of small income, we can still get you money to help your business. If you're just a business owner, and according to the news source that we just got, we have hedge funds, we got angel funds, private lenders, mortgage companies, mortgage brokers. We got all of that. I cannot be any benefit to my people, to the community, if I don't have resources in a network. I spent years building a network. A lot of people don't know my portfolio. A lot of people don't know that I own donkeys. You know, I had donkeys. When I came out of college, I was debt-free coming out of college. When I came out, I went and bought donkeys to take outside. I went and opened up 5 restaurants and businesses in the city. One of my best friends, like a brother to me, Guy Rozier, and I bought into the Panzerati's and donkeys and took it and opened up in New Haven, Connecticut, down the street from Whaley Avenue, while he and his lovely wife was running the business in the radio station. And we took it and sent them all over the country, mailing Panzerati's and donkeys cheesesteaks. And it wasn't until recently that I stopped doing the donkeys. And because when a lady approached me in Connecticut and said she didn't eat donkey meat, I never even thought of that before. You know, donkeys, you know, it's a tradition for us. We know what donkeys stands for. It's the original cheesesteak. But the name wasn't that great. And the bottom line is I'm not motivated by the dollar as much as I'm motivated by purpose. And so, you know, for the last, I don't know how many years, I haven't been involved with donkeys, but we still do the Panzerati's and other things like that. And we try and stay busy. So as for Camden, let's just stay together, stay vigilant, stay united. The dissension that's on Facebook, I apologize for my part, but the reality is all I did was make a post and say, listen, I read it and I know the facts. Anybody have any questions, call me. And it just went awry. And so for my part in any dissension, again, to the community of Camden, I apologize. But I can tell you this, anybody that's not putting out the right thing for the city of Camden, trust me, there's more detrimental than just staying in one lane. You know, I'm not in the forefront of anything. I'm in the background of understanding what they do, what's right, and what's illegal. And everybody that's done something illegal, I'm trying to send them to jail. I want you to understand that. I'm trying to send them to jail. I have not filed I have not walked into those offices. I filed charges. I filed charges against people, the police department, the sheriff's department. I signed charges and I take them to court. This is not what it's about, because there's got to be consequences for your actions. People in our street are dying. You know, I remember I lost my youngest brother shot in the chest because somebody was playing with a gun. That's why it's so passionate for me. And then when people say, Troy, you don't live in Camden. Listen, you want me to buy a house in Camden? I buy a house in Camden. But the point of the matter is I got houses in other states. What I need a house in Camden for? I'm going to be buried. I'm paying for my house in Camden. That's called my burial site. Where I'm going to be buried is in Camden. Okay? That's my house. Now, if you don't understand that, then you don't understand reality of manhood. You don't understand the reality of being a provider. You don't understand the reality of fighting for people that are less fortunate than yourself. You have not walked the walk. And the other thing you don't understand is if you only have one God. I don't serve money. If God tells me to fight for the city of Camden and put my life on the line, I've been putting my life on the line all my life. So the reality is, you know, I'm in my lane. I'm knowing the facts, and the facts are guiding me to do the right thing for those people in the city of Camden, my friends, my family, and the people I don't know that I'm willing to learn and willing to meet. It's for all of those reasons that I'm walking the walk. And I'll continue to read, I'll continue to get better, and I'll continue to give. And the reality is we are winning. We're going to continue to win. I'll do all I can to work with people that's trying to unite people, because when you're united, you win. That's the bottom line. When we stay united, we win. The first time ever that I've been going to city council meeting, that's been since 1988. I've been going to council meetings since 1988, okay? And I was driving from Maryland, where I was living, to attend those meetings. Just so you know, come in and go right back. And I still had a house in Camden too. But the reality is this, long story short, we are winning because we are vigilant, because we're trying to stick together, and we need more of that. That room was filled with people in the hallways, and that has not been done. And that demonstration is worth protecting. We need to make sure that people stay aware that they are trying to take away everything. You know, there's only two services basically left in the city of Camden that they own. That's the water company and the sewer. Water and sewer. Once water and sewer is gone, we don't have any services. We won't have any. You know, we just won't. We got the fire department, but you know, they took the police department. You know, it's just a matter of time they're going to try to take the fire department, but we can't let them. I need everybody to be on guard and pick a lane. Whatever lane you in, if you're good at it, that's your lane. That's your lane. And believe me, if somebody gets in your lane, we're not going to go on social media and tell you. We'll just shut the door and we'll deal with it. All of us stay in that room and we deal with it.
And that was great. That's a great closing. And, you know, man, I got to get you back on again. And don't, you know, I was born 1958 at Cooper Hospital, right? I lived at 4th and Mickle Street. My aunt was the curator of the Walt Whitman House. I used to go over there and sleep, and then I was at 3rd and Washington. So this is 2019. Don't change the fact if I'm born in Cooper Hospital, I always can say something about Camden.
That's right. That's right. Listen, I tell people all the time, you know, where we're from, that's what matters. I don't know anybody that's from Camden that don't love Camden. Yeah. I mean, come on. Everybody loves Camden in their own way. Some people stay far, far away. When it comes down to it, they come back. That's what we know. Those reunions, the turkey game is traditional. Those things is traditional for a reason, because of the love for Camden. It's the love for Camden, man. And I played on the field. You know, my teammate was Mike Rozier. I played with a lot of great guys, Vernon Boyd and Brian. You know, a lot of people. You know, those guys put it in. They put the work in. They was younger than us. Kevin Young. You know, we had some good guys. Clark. I mean, we had people that was in Camden I looked up to. I was their water boy. You know, we start early. We was water boys before we got to be the starting players on the field. You know, because we put the time in. You know, and that's how we got along. You know, I was raised with all the older guys. I didn't hang with the young guys. I was hanging with the older guys. You know, Stacy Johnson. You know, come on.
That's my cousin.
Guys.
That's my cousin, Stacy.
Yeah, well, you know, Stacy's been a mentor all my adult life, man. You know, because bottom line, he did it big. And Michigan came back, and he didn't forget where he came from. You know what he did when he came back? He was coaching. He came back coaching us, man. He put it in. Joe DeLeese, you know, the Carpenters, you know, those guys put it in. You know, John Cade, you know, David Cade, all of them, man, come on. They put it in. Coach Hill. I can go on and on. Coach Famil, you know. Coach Famil made us a beast. You know, Coach Hill, they made us a beast. When we walked on football fields in college, I tried out with the pros. When we walked in there, let me tell you something, man. Guys didn't want to hit us. We hit till your helmet fall off. We hit till the whistle blow. That's how we was taught. You know, we had tradition, man. Camden's a whole different breed, bro.
Yeah.
You put Camden in any other environment. Any environment you put them in, they'll survive. I lived in Chicago. On the South Side. You know, and I was prepared, man. I was prepared. Camden prepared me for the world.
Coming out of Camden, you'll be for everyone. Now we're gonna I gotta get ready to get out, but I'm gonna get you back, you know. And remember, and the only reason why you were shaped and molded that good, because you're a Woodrow Wilson graduate. And everything good comes out of Wilson. So look, this your guy, Ray Wilkinson, coming to you live. Ray's going to live, coming to you live all the way from here. Where's here? Right here. And like we always say on Ray's Corner Live, God loves you, I love you, and guess what? Ain't nothing you can do about it. Peace out. Love you, my brother. We only
Love you back, man.
All
Love
right.
you back, bro.
I gotta go. You got any of them down there in the West End?
Yeah, I'm still down here in the West End. My son's, doing good in college, and just putting it in, putting the work in so that they can have. That's what it's all about. But I'm back and forth in Camden and back and forth in Jersey. So that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take. I'm still a father. And I got responsibility.
I know who I can hop a ride. I can hop a ride with now on going up to Camden.
Man, you can take the keys, man. Just put gas in the car.
Peace out. Love you, my brother. Talk to you later.
Love you back.
All right.
Love you back, man. All right.